I wanted to bring today's topic to the podcast. We're talking about Emma, so her journey with infertility and really how she was able to connect with her body ahead of time. Because a lot of times, this was for me, I felt so disconnected. I had no idea what was happening in my body, physically. And so for her, like she would, like myself, was stuck in her mind, and the body was just like this vessel. So learning how to connect with your body and then asking for what you need as you go through, if you're going through a treatment, going through a treatment like she did. And then we talk about shamanic journeying, how that can be really helpful. I've done that myself, and it is kind of helps to know that we're not alone. We talk about bringing in our spirit guides, and it's just a really cool episode to dig into talking about the signs, and really there's signs are all around us, and to be able to help you navigate this journey. So hopefully you find some useful information in here to dig a little deeper, know that you're definitely not alone. And thanks so much for listening, and feel free to leave a review on iTunes.
Hey there, I regularly speak with 5 to 10 couples per week who are struggling to have their baby. And although we want to help everyone, we only have 2 spots available per month to work with us. So the Supercharge Your Fertility Discovery call is for action takers and really people who are ready to move forward so they can finally have their baby. And if you're not ready and you wait, the risk is you'll need to wait 2 to 3 months for a spot to open up. So if you're seriously considering working with us, go to FabFertile, FABfertile.com, and click on book a free call. Then you'll be all booked in and ready to spend 30 minutes to give you the action plan to getting pregnant naturally. That's FabFertile, FABfertile.com, and click on book a free call.
And what blows me away is that sense of deep love. It's like the universe loves you and wants you to kind of blossom. That is easier to believe at some times of our lives than others. And certainly on a fertility journey, it is hard.
Welcome to Get Pregnant Naturally, where functional medicine and natural fertility solutions will help you get pregnant and have your baby. Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Clark, and my mission is to inspire, motivate, and empower you. And most of all, I want you to wake up. So with functional medicine, we can discover what causes infertility and eventually reverse the condition. Today, I'm welcoming Dr. Emma Brodzinski to the podcast, and we're digging into listening to your body during the fertility journey. Dr. Emma Brodzinski is a therapist and fertility coach. She is a member of the British Association of Dramatherapists and is on the editorial board of Dramatherapy, the professional journal of the association. Emma has also produced work in the fields of arts and health, including Theater in Health and Care, published by Palgrave Macmillan. Her book, The Magic of Orange Knickers, an alternative guide to IVF, will be published soon. Emma's qualifications include a PhD exploring the representation of suffering, a postgraduate diploma in dramatherapy, a diploma in color therapy, and a level 5 coaching qualification from the Chartered Management Institute. She is registered and regulated by the Health Professionals Council. Visit her website at emmabrodzinski.com. That's EMMABRODZINSKI.com. And before we jump into today's show, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this to make sure you never miss an episode.
Hey, Emma, excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you very much. I am very excited to be here because I get to be in England and in Canada at the same time.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, awesome. So can you share your journey as to how you came to this work?
Becoming to kind of doing the fertility coaching and all of that. I never intended to do that. As many people who are fertility coaches don't intend to do that.
It was not on my career path either.
Totally, blimey.
No.
So I came to it, as many people do, through my own journey. I actually, before I went into the fertility journey, I was a therapist and been working as a therapist, but then found myself doing the crazy stuff of the fertility journey. So then came out the other end of that, having just what I call it the boot camp for the soul. That was what my fertility journey was. It was a boot camp. I worked out stuff along the way, got to the other end of that, and thought, actually, I would really like to help the people to continue the military metaphor, to help people who are still in the trenches, because it is tough out there, as we all know. And actually, I think I'd found some stuff that was useful, and this potentially could help other people.
Okay, great. And did you want to elaborate a little bit? I know you have triplets, and so it was quite a thing that you're going through. Did you want to share a little more about your specific journey there, and I guess how you came to think, okay, wait, I need to help this population?
Yeah, no, so the journey was a very long one. Took many years. Again, that's not unusual.
Okay.
It included a phantom pregnancy, which was totally wild. So, I had all the symptoms of pregnancy, including, my tummy swelled up, my breast got bigger, no period, all of that, convinced I was pregnant, went to see, but didn't have a positive pregnancy test, of course, and then went to have a scan, but there was no baby there. So that all happened and was horrific, but really, really signaled the power of the mind. I so desperately wanted to be pregnant. And so that happened, and sadly had a miscarriage too, which as many people will know, the devastation of that, and ended up after many years going sort of at the doors of an IVF clinic, and very nearly didn't go through them because I just thought, this is horrific. This looks horrific. I don't want to do this, because I'd always imagined, as many people do, that kind of this, it was going to be a mystical, amazing experience. The conception of my child is going to be thunder and lightning and amazingness, and it was not going to involve a load of syringes and laboratories and all of that. That just looked horrific to me. So I was like, no, I don't think so. But luckily for me, I had a friend who said, you might want to just think about that for a little while, Emma, before you walk away. And, you can make your baby with love and passion in a different way. That's still possible for you. And so I was like, okay, all right, let's have a think about that. And made a promise to myself that this would be a magical experience. I would make it that, and I kind of promised my inner tree hugger that I would do all of that stuff around it to bring in holistic practices, that this wouldn't just be about me submitting myself to IVF, which is what I saw it as. And I think I have a history of, I've had emotional and sexual and physical abuse. So that sense of being prodded and poked and kind of all of that was just looked horrific to me. So I promised myself that I would look after myself and I would find ways to have a sense of control. Because I think that's a big thing, isn't it, in this journey, is that sense of control being taken away, other people stepping in. For someone with a history like mine, that is your worst nightmare. That is just, kind of re-triggers all kind of trauma. So I set off on the IVF thing, having already been on quite a journey before I got there, in terms of rediscovering my body, and kind of getting in contact with my body again, and which is a whole thing. I don't know whether that's worth talking about, but that was
What did you do there? What do you mean?
So I think because of my history,
right.
I was very much kind of divorced from my body, as people know, that sense of kind of what the psyche does, and it's a healthy response in many ways, is dissociate, splits off, because your body is not, in those kinds of circumstances, not a safe place to be, actually. And so part of that psyche splits away, and actually, even though I felt like I'd kind of dealt with things, I hadn't really at all, and I was still very much divorced from my body. I think hence the phantom pregnancy. That signals really, doesn't it, how far apart my body and my mind were. My body was definitely running the show. My mind was definitely running the show. That's a bit of a slip. But so actually for me, I'd then got a job as an academic and was very happily living in my head and not in my body. Trying to get pregnant then, of course, brings you back into this relationship with your body, which for me was actually a really healing thing to do. initially was completely confusing and bewildering to me and frustrating. And I think that there's a lot of people can relate to that, isn't there? The kind of, it's not doing what I want it to do.
Mm-hmm.
But that whole thing of looking after myself in terms of having enough sleep. I mean, I was basically just driving myself. My body was a vehicle to get my head about. So if my head needed to do things, my body just had to keep up. So I wasn't, I didn't feed it properly. I didn't look after it properly. I didn't give it enough rest. I didn't care for it, nurture it. And so that was kind of phase one, really, of that fertility journey, and that kind of healing part of that fertility journey was me kind of going, oh, okay, I need to rest. I need to hydrate. I need to. So, we're really talking baseline stuff here, Sarah. It's quite.
But you know what? It's like you're not alone in this, and myself included, and the couples that I coach, it sort of is kind of taking it back to basics. And when we start with people, it's like, how much water are you drinking? And it's amazing that actually, and I was the same. I literally thought it was a great idea that I only urinated once a day because I had, barely one glass of water, and I always kind of ate fairly regularly, because if I didn't, then I get like super hangry. But like those basic things, and yeah, I was totally disconnected from my body as well. Like I was diagnosed with premature ovarian failure. I had both my kids with donor eggs, and then went off and was, lucky enough to have them that way. But I had no clue that all these things going on in my body were connected. I just was, stuck in my head and didn't even know, what my body was trying to tell me. And it was like the quote where like your body will whisper, and when you ignore the signals, it starts shouting at you in the form of disease. So taking a step back and really connecting with your body and looking at those basic principles. And so then as you move forward, so that was your first step. And then also because of the trauma that you experienced in your earlier years that kept coming up for you.
Exactly. And because I think culturally we're not encouraged to listen to our bodies anyway. And I think that, I think it is, I'm sure that with the people that you're working with too, I know my clients, that sense of people not knowing their own menstrual cycle, like we're not encouraged to dive into that and to be aware of our own bodies. I could get political about this for a minute, but actually it's truly radical to do that, to really make connection back with yourself and to know that you are fully back to yourself. So as I say, that was kind of phase one, and that's why I think coming to the IVF clinic was like, no, I've done all this work, I'm connected with my body. Because the next phase on from actually hydrating and doing that was kind of going and starting to get massages and aromatherapy and that kind of so sense of kind of having a pleasure in my body. Now, of course, again with my history, that wasn't necessarily something that had come very naturally to me, but actually I'd kind of come into that and was enjoying that. So I didn't want to sort of have that rug pulled from me. So coming into IVF, there was a whole kind of upping the ante, really. So I would also, as well, I discovered and fell in love with yoga. So that sense of kind of really connecting with my body and with my breath and with the kind of physical exercise. So that there was a lot of good stuff going on, but actually then there was that sense of a kind of a whole nother level of stuff, because it was about fear and control and a much more sort of emotional, connecting back into that emotional stuff and into the sort of what I call the sort of psycho-spiritual stuff as well. That's sort of the bigger picture of me as a person, really, going into that situation that I was very fearful about.
Yeah, which is totally normal. A lot of going through that. It is scary because it's the unknown, trying to control it, and you don't really know what's going to happen. So for you beforehand, connecting with your body and then doing like some of that touch therapy with massage. Like I have loved getting massages my whole life since I was 20. I've been obsessed with them. But I know a lot of people are like, no, I don't want someone touching me.
Yeah.
It's very, very healing to do that. But if there isn't, so for someone that's experienced so that touch therapy could be scary for them. Like how did you navigate that then?
Well, I say, I think it wasn't a kind of immediately sort of dive into things, and I think that what one of my therapy mentors who were super gorgeous and super wise always said to me, you know, your psyche will just take you as fast as you can go. So just go with that. And so I think that if you feel like that's what you need to reflect on in terms of kindness to yourself, self-care in the not the kind of woolly Instagram kind of way, but in that kind of deep radical way, if you feel like actually there is something about kind of connecting with your body and having pleasure in your body, which, as we know, the fertility journey can kind of strip away, because even that kind of that basic sexual pleasure becomes very, you know, odd, because it becomes a functional act. What I would say is, you know, go really slowly, because it could be about just you taking baths and, you know, to really just kind of enjoying the sense of that, and an aromatherapy bath, and then it might, you know, or it might be dancing, and so that you don't have to kind of go, okay, I think it's going to be good for me, and so I need to go into a place that I feel uncomfortable with and get a massage straight away, or going to have like a manicure and having a hand massage. Do you know what I mean? So that actually you're going at your own pace, because you don't want to be pushing yourself into a place that you don't feel comfortable about. That's not helpful, is it?
Mm-hmm. And then for you, then you went through IVF.
Yes.
And how was that experience?
So as I say, I promised myself, probably foolishly, but actually no, I did it. I promised myself it was going to be magical and it was going to be okay. And I say more than okay. So I really went all out and did everything around it. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend that everybody does this, because I think it was probably a little bit, this was my kind of overachiever came out as well. I went into the kind of the deeper practices, so Reiki, and I actually trained in Reiki while I was undergoing my IVF. Partly because that was the thing of like, I wanted to have something else to focus on, but also I knew that energy work was really important and useful. And at the same time, I was also doing other kind of more, what's the word? I guess, you know, that kind of deeper practices. We have this kind of discussion about shamanic work.
Yeah.
Really where I discovered or had profound experiences in terms of shamanic practice.
So let's kind of define that first for people if they're not sure what that is.
As I've already confessed to you, Sarah, I would not say that I am, you know, I don't have a kind of particular school of training or whatever. So I'm talking about this from my experience and my interests. Shamanism is basically it's that kind of ancient basic belief system, and it's a belief that everything is connected and we're all connected. And I've been working with this amazing teacher called Sandra Ingerman, who talks about this way of seeing the world. So it's a perspective of seeing the world, and shamanic cultures function in that way. In shamanic cultures, there are kind of three worlds. There's the middle world, as they call it, which is the world that we kind of see around us and of nature. And then there's the underworld, which we might kind of reconceptualize that as what Jung called the collective unconscious. And Jung very much worked in a shamanic way, so his kind of understanding of what that might mean really can help people who don't know so much about shamanism to sort of come into that. So that sense of in the underworld, that there's that kind of, it's a holding place of all that kind of wisdom and love and healing in there. And then in the upper world, it's kind of about guidance. And in shamanic culture, people are believing that everything is connected, and particularly thinking about the way in which we're connected with nature. So believing that everything is family, you know, the animals are family, the trees are family, the wind is family, the waves are family. So that's how you would kind of approach life, which is actually, you know, really magical when you start to do that. So that's where that's sense of kind of connection with trees and things. So in shamanic culture, you're connected with it, with the energy and the power. That everyone has the sense of their own energy and their own power. And when you lose that sense of your own power, people say, I just don't feel at full power. I don't quite feel myself. That's we still have it, but we frame it up in a different way. But actually, in a shamanic culture, you would then go to the shaman and say, there's something missing from myself. There's some power missing from myself. And the shaman would go get your power back for you. And so the shaman would travel to the underworld or to the upper world, or even to the middle world sometimes, to find your power and bring it back to you, which I find fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
And there are different ways, obviously, because shaman is huge. So there are different ways that people see it. But what I was really interested in is this sense of, and remain really interested in, is this sense of soul retrieval and bringing back bits of you that are lost. And for me, that was particularly interesting because of my trauma and that sense of kind of, I say that, splitting, that dissociation. And that is really common, a sense of having lost part of yourself, or part of yourself has become stuck. And so working shamanically with that's kind of bringing back that part, bringing back the power, bringing back, because bits of you can also, in shamanic belief, be kind of stolen or lost, and the shaman brings it back. Does that make sense? Because I'm not sure that I'm eloquent enough about talking about this gorgeous stuff.
No, it totally makes sense. We had Alexandra Roxo, and she did a shamanic journey for us, and I worked with her for a number of months, and that's episode, you can check it out, it's called Embracing the Feminine Fire. And in there, so a lot, and maybe this is maybe what you did, but she had she would have a drum going, or like something to keep the beat, and then she'd have you go on the sort of, you're on steps, and you're like down these steps, and keep going down. You're going into your unconscious, and then into this, you go down this hallway. She'd usually have you go down, and then you're going into a room, and then you sort of see what's in the room. You could have angels, or people that have passed away, or people that, so you could have these different people with you, and then you could have the room however you liked it. Mine was always some dark room with a big throne. I don't know, it was strange, but
I love that.
Yeah,
gorgeous.
Yeah, and then she'd talk about having your future self. What would your future self say to you for whatever you're going through? And usually the future self, mine was like this warrior woman. She was like this really strong, powerful woman. She kind of had the Beyonce hair. She had like flowing. Yes. So I did that a lot with her. So when you did your practice, what did it look like for you?
A big one for me. The big one was this was, as I'm sure lots of people can relate to this, it's like this kind of desperate, is this going to work? So this was a big one, just coming into my treatment. I was like, is this going to work? I need to know. And of course, as you say, going down into the underworld in particular, you can get messages, you can get information. Is this collective unconscious? Is this collective knowing of this kind of big place of wisdom that you can go get information from? And you can either go yourself, or the shaman can go for you. I journeyed, and it blew my mind. I went and I saw, and often as well, you'll see, I don't know if this happened for you as well, Sarah, in terms of seeing images that you don't necessarily understand so much at the time, but that you can kind of reflect on afterwards, what the symbols mean. Mm-hmm. Because often there's a sense of kind of communicating through symbol rather than language, and so it might need a kind of bit of interpretation. I remember going, it was this beautiful fish, this amazing fish, and it took me, I got on its back, and it took me in this fast flowing water, and it was thrilling. And then I went and saw this beautiful woman, and she was standing, and she had a child in her arms and two children kind of hiding in her skirt. And I saw her, and I just thought, she's amazing. She must be like this sort of goddess Actually, it sounds a bit funny, doesn't it, in terms of what I'm going to say in a minute. But it was just such a beautiful, warm scene, and her children were so gorgeous, and she just was just glowing. And then, of course, as you know, the drum beat calls you back, and you have to come back when the drum beat calls you back.
Mm.
So I came back and looked up Fish, and Fish was fertility.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, this is very exciting. Oh, you know, and how I thought about it at the time was, you know, the goddess is with me. I'm going to be all right. It's, you know, I'm on the fertility journey is going to be fast and take me to this place that was kind of beautiful, and there were children there. But then, of course, as I kind of reflected on it more, and as I've looked back on it, it's like, that was me. Like, I saw I have triplets. I saw my 3 children, and I saw me in that sense of kind of having been on that journey and going, like you say, his future self was there. It's like, it's going to be all right, Emma, we've got you. So I found that just so profound, deeply healing, really comforting. And there were other stories too that I can tell in terms of that journeying, which allowed me to access this kind of this deep love, really, this deep sort of sense of love and wisdom and information. I say sometimes you get told things you don't necessarily want to know. but that one was a gorgeous one. And I do now today. Most days I will do just a little practice just to go down, have a look, see what's going on in the underworld.
Okay. So you do have a kind of like a drum thing going, and then you go.
I do. And I think what is great about that, because in kind of shamanic belief that everybody has their own power animal, so they have and the animal really is just the symbol in terms of what your kind of your personal power. And that often when people say, you know, I feel like I'm not quite myself and things have gone, often the shaman will go to get you, either your power animal is gone, so you need to get a new one, or you know, it's just gone off, it's got a bit bored and gone off somewhere, and it needs to be called back to you. Going and visiting your power animal, and it just is, I say, it sounds totally out there as I talk about it, but it actually is so beautiful. And it's kind of, I guess it's that kind of meditative practice, really.
That's what I found.
And I love it. And if I don't do it, I feel a bit lost. That kind of work in terms of connecting and it's more than connecting with yourself. So it is actually about connecting with yourself and reclaiming your power, but also seeing yourself as part of a bigger system, about a part of the wider world, and being guided, supported, loved, helped by the universe, by that bigger practice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was in this moon club, it was all across. I haven't done it for about 6 months or so, and it was the one that the lady that was on the podcast there, Embracing the Feminine Fire, Alexandra, and so she would lead it, and each month we do that the shamanic practice, and she talked a lot about, because I did a retreat with her, and she talked when we started. She's like, I want you to honor your lineage of your grandmother, your mother, like everyone's here in the room with you, all your people that have come before. So because a lot of times on this journey we feel like really alone, but to know that we're all part of this lineage.
Absolutely. And that is so, because obviously the ancestors are huge, and the ancestors have that collective wisdom, and they are with you, like they really are with you, and they can, well, you know, they can visit, and you can feel their sense of their power with you too. Or just to imagine them. There's a beautiful visualization that Julia Indachova does, doesn't she? That kind of that blanket wrapped around you, and the generations of women there, because we can know that there are women back in our lineage who will have had similar struggles. They may not ever have talked about them, or people may not know about it, but you know, there will have been miscarriages in the family, there will have been all sorts of difficulties, and they're all there for us, supporting us, loving us. It blows me away when I connect into that. It's just amazing. And the moon, of course, the moon itself is awesome. And his family, you know, in shamanism, it is family, and it's speaking to us and loves us and wants the best for us. Connecting with the moon and connecting, I mean, at the basic level, connecting with the moon and understanding your menstrual cycle in relation to the moon, because I think for some people they might be going, blimey, that is so out there, I'm not that shamanism thing is out there, that's not for me. But actually, if you can bring it right back to actually connecting with your menstrual cycle and understanding, because most women will either bleed on the full moon or the new moon. In fact, most women bleed on the full moon, but some women bleed on the new moon. And so even just kind of connecting back into that, and that kind of the cycles of the earth, and that you are part of that bigger picture, can be really profound for people. So it's not that you have to go kind of all in for that. And the other thing that I certainly have experienced with clients that have been helpful for clients, and just love the stories because it's super cute a lot of the time, is the sense of kind of connection with animals. Because also I think in shamanic culture there's a belief that, well, and it does circulate also in contemporary Western culture too, that sense of the kind of the psychic abilities of pregnant women in particular. In shamanic belief, there's this understanding of women who are kind of coming into motherhood, so people who are trying to conceive, as well as those who are pregnant, having a kind of extra sensitivity. There's an understanding that in kind of bringing a soul into the world, that you're part of that sort of shamanic practice. You are, just as the shaman of the society would be bringing things across. As a woman who is kind of looking to bring a partnership that's looking to bring in a new soul, there's a heightened awareness and a heightened sensitivity. So people at this time often find that they are more sensitive and more aware of things. And I'm getting to my point in a minute, Sarah. Sorry about this rambling.
Oh, go.
That people often find that kind of a new connection with nature and with animals in particular. And I found lots of stories of people who have had particular animals come to them, or a couple of good ones in terms of, and that I know they're happy to share, is that someone had squirrels come, and every time she went to the fertility clinic she would see these squirrels, and they'd be, you know, they were definitely coming to say hello to her. And then on the day of her transfer, she saw a pregnant squirrel. And that was that successful transfer for her, was that day. Another one of my clients, they went and had their transfer, and a heron came in. They went for a walk in the park afterwards, and a heron came in front of them, looked them in the eye, definitely was there to look them in the eye, and just held their gaze for a while. And so it's like, wow, the stork literally came to them.
Oh yes, with the legs, the stork.
And that was their successful transfer. And lots of stories like that, in terms of, because again, in shamanic belief, that animals are family. They want the best for us, and they're trying to communicate with us. They're trying to send us blessings, give us messages. And so again, it may not be that you want to go for full-on shamanic practice, but it may be that you just keep an eye out for the animals that are around you, if they're animals that kind of keep appearing for you. Again, just like with the sort of going into the kind of journeying and seeing symbols, often there are animals, power animals have a symbolism, and the animals that might be coming to you may have a particular symbolism and be sort of giving you a particular message. Squirrels are very much about kind of getting ready. That's the energy of the squirrel, and the stork obviously is the stork. I say fish, fertility. So there's all sorts of meaning there. So I think that there's not a lot to celebrate on a fertility journey, let's be honest. But that sense of actually having that kind of heightened awareness, and a moment where perhaps the veil is a little bit thinner, and that you might have a bit more of an opportunity to sort of make a connection with a bigger picture, is something that you might want to explore. I say I certainly wanted to explore it because I wanted to make this a magical time and be aware of the bigger picture that was beyond the fertility clinic, and also that sense of, as I say, bringing my whole soul and my whole self in. So that was certainly something that I've embraced and actually stood me in good stead. And as I say, I keep with it now, and certainly, you know, offer that to clients in terms of that kind of deeper connection work, which, as I say, is not for everybody. There's real power in it, I think.
Yeah, Gabrielle Bernstein she did a talk on Oprah's Super Soul Sunday. I think not her Super Soul Sunday, but it was a talk on one of Oprah's conferences. If you Google Gabrielle Bernstein and fertility, it should come up in Oprah. Anyways, and she talks about at the end seeing turkeys. Because she was like, give me a sign. And we also had an episode where we talk about like everything is a sign.
Yes.
There's signs everywhere. Like we're just, you know, if you see something that happens, you know, 2 or 3 times, it's a sign for you to take note of it. A lot of times we're just so caught up in our busyness that we miss it. So yeah, for her, the turkey came, and then she ended up downloading half of her book, just kind of came out of her as she was kind of going through this process. Squirrels come up for me though, because I don't know, I'm not really scared of many things. Well, I shouldn't say that, but like from an animal perspective, I don't really like squirrels. They're always
okay.
I'm like, oh, there's a squirrel. I grew up in a forest, and there was like trees everywhere, and I knew these squirrels. I always was worried the squirrel was going to come in the house and like chase me. So I had like this recurring nightmare of like a squirrel coming after me. So maybe I was getting ready for something. Who knows? I was getting
maybe. And also probably if you don't like them, they might not come for you.
The squirrel.
I think it's that sense, isn't it, of what blows me away is that sense of deep love. It's like the universe loves you and wants you to kind of blossom. Easier to believe at some times of our lives than others, and certainly on a fertility journey it is hard to sometimes to feel that love when you feel like this is not why me, why this. But actually, and again, I don't like this sort of, I don't want to be trite with it, but actually this was, I say, it was a boot camp for me, but it was so useful. It really changed the shape of my soul, that journey. And you know, I now find myself as a single mum of triplets, one of whom is severely disabled, and I need that soul work to keep me going. You know, had I not done that, who knows where I'd be now. So I'm very grateful for that journey. I mean, it's a gift that nobody wants, right? But actually opening myself up to that, I can see now how useful that was, and yeah, what a blessing it was. I say, it's not, I kind of hate those kind of things like, oh, it'll be all right in the end. Well, you know, that's not what I'm saying. It's just, I'm saying actually there could be a blessing in it. So if you kind of have to explore that possibility.
Yeah, to dig into these pieces of that we're not alone, that there's signs everywhere, that yeah, maybe you have an animal that's by your side. I know I went to a psychic once, and I've been to a psychic more than once, but a few times, and one of the times they had my dog that had passed away about 4 or 5 years ago. She said, "There's this white thing running back and forth. I see that." I'm like, "Oh, that was my dog Sadie." So she's like, "Oh, she's right here with you." And then she saw a couple grandparents that were there. So it's interesting, these little guides that are kind of around us, protecting us.
Totally. And I think, and it's not just animals and things. So I've been working with Sandra Ingerman, and we did this amazing ceremony. And there's a big thing about ceremony as well in terms of shamanic culture. And I made my own ceremonies and rituals to help myself through this process. Little rituals for the clinic, and bigger rituals that I performed, which I can say a bit more about in a minute. But I think in terms of the Sandra Ingerman stuff and the rituals, we did this practice called honourable closure, and just kind of saying thank you to the animals and the plants in particular, because we've been working on kind of middle world and nature that had been in our lives. It was really, I was sobbing because the images that came to me, my sister's rabbit, who was with us at a time that was so difficult for my sister, and I remembered that, and it was just, I got that sense of how much that rabbit loved my sister and was trying to look after her. My yucca plants from university. But I remember, but actually, when I look back on it now, that was the thing I took from home. It lived in my room with me. I cared for it every day. Like, it's kind of course it makes sense, but it was there with me. So it's that sense of not just the animals who we kind of have that sense of feeling, especially dogs and cats. We kind of really get that sense of the love from them. But there are other things around us too loving us, that the plants in our garden, and I mean, yeah, it is, to experience that is, mind blowing. And I mean, when I was on my IVF journey, I wasn't at that place yet, but I did, as I say, have my own little rituals. And I mean, again, that can be at all sorts of levels for people. For some people, it may be literally going, I'm going to make sure that after every, I know that before every appointment or after every appointment, there's that, that coffee shop that I'm going to go to, and I know it's going to be something to look forward to. But it also could be things like going into the egg collection room. I got not everybody, I got the people who knew about what was going on to write me little blessings or words of love that I had in a bracelet around my wrist as I went in. So I knew that I was taking all those people into the room with me. I wasn't on my own. So it's those kinds of practices, as you said, we can feel so alone on this journey, and actually there are things that we can do. There is love around us, and to kind of tap into that can be really sustaining, and actually also can just remind us of the love that's around us. Because certainly when I was, disconnected from my body and walking around being a workaholic, I wasn't necessarily that aware of the love. And actually, that was part of this journey, was becoming open to being supported and loved in that kind of absolute vulnerability that I felt.
Yeah, and just back to the new moon thing, we did have a podcast episode where we talked about just that, your syncing your cycle with the moon, and it was back on, Zara Haji, and how the moon impacts fertility. She takes us through a whole meditation and moon fertility moon meditation, so that's a good one to listen to. So the connection piece, and then with the body, and then going through IVF and sort of knowing you're not alone, bringing in kind of messages with you. Anything else that helped you through?
That helped me through, I think just that whole sense of taking control, in terms of knowing that this was my journey. And while I was welcoming the help, and I had to work a lot on welcoming the help of clinicians, because, as I say, it felt very, I didn't have a positive thought about that, and it felt very frightening. But I just reminded myself that this was my journey. They were there to help me as part of that team, and kind of embracing that. Buddhist belief really helped me in terms of seeing the kind of karmic connection that you have, that there is between a parent and a child, and then that belief that in a kind of IVF or a bigger, any kind of assisted fertility, that sense of the karmic connection that goes with a wider group of people. So I was working on embracing the fact that the embryologist was part of this karmic connection. And actually, when I kind of got with that, it was like, that's wild. All these people are calling that baby in. Yeah. So that really helped me. And then at a practical level, as I say, just remembering that was my journey. So, literally just trying to keep with my own pace in that. So, and that was literally practical things like, sometimes you go into these places and they call you and they just want to hurry you down a corridor. And I would be like, okay, I don't have to hurry. I can just walk and take my time. So it's kind of really feeling the sense of myself in that space, honouring my own body in that space. Because I think, again, just to come back to the kind of the trauma piece, they can be very triggering places, and it's really, really important to look after yourself and do what you need to do. And I was careful to prepare myself for going into that, and to make sure that I felt in control, made sure that I asked all the questions that I needed to ask, had my little notebook with me at all times, as I say, literally took my time in terms of entering a room. If I wanted to have the music on, or I didn't, I wanted to be in a different position, because I think especially with a kind of sexual trauma, that position, as we all know, that sense of kind of being on your back, especially if they're doing a kind of an internal scan, that is the kind of worst case scenario, really. Again, claiming back that power and knowing that you can ask to insert that yourself. You don't have to have it inserted. You can say when you want something to happen or not, and you can say what position you want to be in or not. So it's kind of all of those really practical things as well. But I think that came out of that sense of connecting with my own power. And yeah, coming back to myself. So yeah, it was kind of big stuff, really.
Oh, yeah, it's huge. Being really present, because walking slowly and asking for what you need when you're there, and doing what feels right for you. But you've done the work ahead of time to connect and actually listen to your body. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to not allow, because of course, as we know, and not to say, clinics are fantastic places and they do magical things, and they brought my babies to me, and that's amazing. It is a sausage factory in many ways, and people get rushed through, and actually to not let that happen to you, and because it doesn't have to be like that. That's really important, to give yourself, and I think it also is reminding them, isn't it, that you're a person who's on a journey. This is so important to you. You're not, it may be just another appointment to them, but to you this is massive and potentially life-changing, and you can honour that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and we were talking a bit about this book that I will finish one day very soon.
Yes, your book that I was going to ask you, actually, is there anything you're obsessed with right now? Maybe it is your own book, but is there a book or a website or an app or a documentary that you're obsessed with that you wanted to share with the listeners?
I think I am obsessed with the shamanic stuff at the moment. As I say, and I'm working with Sandra Ingerman, and I would really recommend the Book of Ceremony, because it just encourages that sense of ceremony in everyday life, and I think that can be really useful, especially if you are involved in an IVF journey, which has its own sort of clinical ceremonies to it. For you to make your own ceremonies around it can be potentially useful. So I'd recommend that, and I'd recommend looking up Sandra Ingerman's work, which is Ingerman, because she is awesome, and she's done a book on soul retrieval as well, if you were interested in that. The book that might eventually get done, will eventually get done, come on, let's be positive, is The Magic of Orange Knickers. And that was another little ceremony that I did, that I had my orange knickers that I wore for egg retrieval, and so that was partly about warming up the sacral chakra, which I did believe in, but it was also about, this is my body, this is my, I'm doing this for myself, and this is, I'm kind of reclaiming that. And for transfer day, I had a whole orange outfit. So I made sure that I felt like a queen going in there, because this was a big day. And I think, I always talk to clients about that, because I do think it's really important to celebrate this as your day and claiming your power. So I totally believe in The Magic of Orange Knickers.
That's your book coming out soon, The Magic of Orange Knickers, an alternative guide to IVF.
Yes.
And the sacral chakra, that one is orange, is it?
It is orange.
Yes.
So, and the sacral chakra is all to do with creativity in its widest sense. It is about reproduction and that kind of creativity, but it's also about drawing and singing and dancing and expressing. So activating all of those things and making ceremony, making things can really enliven your sacral chakra. And the color orange is the color of the sacral chakra. And also, I mean, in color therapy, it's the sort of natural antidepressant is orange. So you can never go wrong with a bit of orange in your life, really.
I have a friend that she only accepts gifts that are orange. Well, I shouldn't say that, but it's basically
that's
literally
wild.
oh yeah, she just loves orange, like flowers and tea, like all her clothing, her purse, everything is orange. She just she's a very vibrant, fun woman. Okay, so the Book of Ceremony, do you know who that's by?
So that's Sandra Ingerman too. So
that one is okay.
I'm recommending her because I think she writes really beautifully and really accessibly, and she has practiced for so many years. But this Book of Ceremony is, as I say, it's about making ceremony. And I think also, again, on a fertility journey, there may well be losses that you're experiencing, and to kind of creating ceremony around that, acknowledge, like I talked a bit about honourable closure, didn't I? Honouring that life is really important. And I think culturally we are still not good at dealing with miscarriage, talking about miscarriage. We don't. Lois, I can't remember her surname, but talks about Tonkin. Lois Tonkin talks about that disenfranchised grief, that sense of that actually that loss and that grief isn't given kind of cultural recognition, and so often it goes unrecognised. But I think creating ceremony around it can help you to give recognition for yourself, and also to kind of in that kind of wider sense. And certainly that's kind of shamanic perspective of that honourable closure and honouring that moment and what you're going through. So I would recommend the Book of Ceremony for that too.
That's really important. Yeah. So the Book of Ceremony, and then the Soul Retrieval. Yeah,
so she's also written. I mean, she's written loads, but those are two I'd particularly recommend. Especially if somebody has experienced trauma or just feels like there's part of you missing, and that might help you to sort of navigate that.
And you got a free animal guide booklet. So what can they expect when they download this?
So that's back to the animal thing. So on that, it's got a few common animals that you might see, and hopefully that will translate internationally. And the messages that they might be bringing you. So it's you can have a look at that, see if that resonates with you at all. See if there's any of those animals are around for you.
Great. We'll have the link for that in the show notes. And thanks so much for coming on the podcast, sharing your words of wisdom. This is really a cool topic. And thanks for sharing your personal journey, how you discovered all this sort of really organically, it sounds like, and employed all these different strategies that really helped you navigate the journey in a positive way. So thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you, Sarah, so much. Thank you.
I don't know whether you've heard, but I'm offering some spaces in my calendar for Supercharge Your Fertility Discovery Calls. So this call is for you if you're ready to get pregnant naturally or improve your chances at the fertility clinic. We take a functional approach to fertility. It's the future of conventional medicine. So there's a reason that so many medical professionals who are trying to conceive work with us. The approach is rooted in science. So the call is for both you and your partner. Go to FabFertile, FabFertile.com and click on Book a Free Call. Then you'll be booked in and ready to spend 30 of the most valuable minutes ever on your fertility. So that's FabFertile, FabFertile.com, and click on the link to book a free call.